We are live, and we are a couple minutes late. Apologize. My name is Sean Cowgill. Guys, I'm a returning citizen. And like I say every week, if you don't know what that is, you got to watch the show. You'll find out. Today, this week's review, our very special guest. Her name is Donna Thomas. She's wrote a lot of books. One is Story of Lighting, Peter's Confession. She's met Ted Bundy and Charles Manson. We're going to hear all about that and the families. I know you met their families.
Yes, I have.
So if you were the mother of Charles Manson, would you go visit him? We're going to talk about that today. First, I have the founder who started it all, Ian Eating Feel Sweet. She's going to give you an update on what's going on this week in the world of Wings for Life International. And we have Raymond Bobo from Liberia coming on right after Ann. Thanks. Whoops. Oh, dear. My bad.
Okay. Hi there, everybody. I'm Ann, and we're happy to be here today. I can't wait to hear about all of this. This is very, very interesting. But I'm here to tell you what we did this week. We, of course, are busy all the time, every day, 24/7, it seems, at Wings. There's always so many things going on. But last week, we did our kickoff for the new year, 2023. We taught everybody about the 40 developmental assets, ways to cut at-risk behaviors. If you don't know about the assets, and if you want to cut at-risk behaviors, if you don't want your kids or anybody that you know to go to prison, watch that video. Just go to our website at Wings Fly, but that's FLI. We're flying, but it's For Life International is what it stands for. So wingsfly.org. And you can watch last week's 40 Developmental Assets Communication 101 and game playing. So we play games and we teach people how to build those assets. Also, we've been planning this week and in preparation of going to Santa Fe, our state capital, because we've got requested to meet with the governor. We're going to meet with all the legislators. Last year, we got money for a building. We got $1,222,222 towards the building. But that's not enough. We need more money. Boy, that sounds kind of crazy, but we want to have enough money to get our building up and running so we don't have to find another space. I'm going to get a big enough space that we have room for our Wings Works, we have room for our bike repair, for the New Mexico Ramp project, a commercial kitchen, room to serve our 100 plus people at Wings for Life every Monday night. Of course, we need to have a children's area. We want to have a craft area, our picture framing area, our painting area, and our GED lab. So that's going to take a lot of space. And we want to have other nonprofits, if they don't have space, to be able to come in and utilize this space. And of course, we've already talked to probation and parole and tried to get a probation officer to be there. That's going to be helpful and help people so they don't have to run all over. And we want to be a one-stop shop. So anyway, that's what we are going to Santa Fe to ask for. Now, let me show you something that our guys, our Wings Weekly Review, our Wings Works guys made. Look at this darling little chili. If you're not from New Mexico, you don't know what this is. But this represents green chili, and we don't eat anything in New Mexico hardly without red or green. And of course, this is clay. And then we've got our little Zia symbol on it. So these were specially made just for every legislature in the state of New Mexico with our little Wings Works label on it. And of course, it could be an ornament or it could be hung anywhere. Look how darling this is. And we're also asking the Balloon Fiesta, the Albuquerque International Balloon Fiesta folks that we work with, would they take this as one of their sale items for next year at the Balloon Fiesta? So, and if they don't want that, we're going to find something that they want because we want to have our Wings Works represented at the Balloon Fiesta. And of course, we sell retail. So if you like that chili, and you want to get that chili, it'll probably sell for about $5, and it can be yours. And you could go to our website at wingsworks.org. Works like Wings is working, and we're putting people to work. This is our job training program. So anyway, that's what we've been doing this week. Those are a few of the highlights, and many, many more things, but I want to get on to this great interview. So Sean, take it away. Here we go.
That's good stuff. See, for the low price of $5, and it's also a donation, a tax write-off. Come down to our office across the street. Everything's scrolling, all the information for Wings for Life International. It's all there. Give us a call anytime, guys. And we're there to help you. And you don't have to have been to prison. We'll help anyone, okay? We specialize in people who've been to prison, families, especially if you have a loved one in prison and you feel like you're all alone in the world, nobody to turn to, you have us to turn to. And we'll show you some other people to turn to. Why don't you call us? So the number's on the screen, guys. We're here to help. You don't have to live in Albuquerque either. But if you do, come down to our offices. And having said all that, I have a great guest. I've talked to her on the phone several times. And I'm probably going to take 10 shows to do with you with all the information that you have. So why don't you just say hello, tell everybody who you are.
Hello.
We're going to meet today.
Hello, I'm Donna Thomas, and I worked in LA as a public defender for close to 20 years. And the bureaucracy of the criminal justice system was just a little bit too much. But what I found my calling, in my opinion, was dealing with the defendants that I represent. There was no lying. It was just right on the table what it was, and I just started writing that. So being a public defender morphed into writing about true crime.
That's a whole nother quite life story right there. Public defender. And we need public defenders on our Wings for Life team.
Right.
We have lots of people that could use your expertise, advice if you're willing to do that.
Okay.
So how did it all start going into the prisons to interview these people?
Well,
and why this type of criminal? I mean, why not interview white collar people or drug dealers?
I interviewed John Gotti. I consider that, even though there was a lot of murder, those were all based on their financial crimes.
I just wondering if you had a fascination.
Well, of course, I always loved true crime. That's why I became a public defender. Okay. And I was in the high intensity team. So my group that I was in only handled the worst of the worst. Ramirez was one of my clients. Yeah, exactly. So I find it very interesting to find out why somebody does what they do. The why is what always fascinates me.
So Scott Peterson was kind of really into them because they hit home. They were near, they lived in the neighborhoods.
Right. And
the Night Stalker, what was his?
He was up in the Northern California too.
He would pick up hitchhikers, or he would hitchhike.
No, he was mostly sexual. So he would do home invasions or breaking. It was always money based. I mean, he would steal what he could, but then he raped women. He was just a very violent, openly worshipped the devil. Spoke about that. And he was very intimidating. He was like 6'5", was tall and scary and brilliant man. He had a genius level IQ, but
do most of them have a genius?
These types of criminals, most of them do have very high IQs. Yes.
Some of them kind of almost want the fame, or they.
I just think there's not one answer with what they do. I mean, Ted Bundy was one of the first ones that I interviewed, right when I got out of law school, and I was in between the bar and waiting for the results. I went up with a group of attorneys that were working on his appeal in Florida, and he asked me if I would like to go, and I did. There in Stark, Florida, is where he was. That's where.
Now, is he shackled when he talks to you? Or
no, it's a legal visit. It's a legal visit. No,
it's a legal.
Well, some of them, if they're not violent, like Richard was very violent, so nobody could sit in a room. If somebody's not violent, then you're having and it's not an issue. With Richard, we had to talk to him through glass because he was very unpredictable, and he had chalk stuff on his legs when he was in court. I mean, he was a very violent person. Even with the lawyers, someone trying to help him, he never behaved himself.
I don't know if I wanted to be in a room with him.
But he was the most polite person. Smart. This new one that's going on in Idaho right now with the 4 students at the University of Idaho, and they captured somebody who was a PhD criminal justice student at Washington State, Brian Kohlberger. They're comparing him to Ted Bundy. And maybe they look alike, but then very, very different from what he's alone, very awkward. This one, they don't see that he's got any girlfriend. I mean, Ted always had a girlfriend. He always had a steady girlfriend. He was an necrophiliac. That's a side issue. But if you wanted to ID somebody with a profile, he wouldn't fit any of those categories. He worked for the governor of Washington.
He did.
Dan Evans at that time. He worked on his campaign. And then when he was arrested, he was a bad driver. A lot of his time got caught was while he was in the car driving. The last one was the very last one was. I mean, he did it in many states. You know, he was in Washington State, then he went to Colorado. They don't even know the full extent. He escaped from Colorado twice.
Really?
Yeah, and then he went to Florida and did the sorority murders went next door, and then he kidnapped a 12-year-old girl named Kimberly Lee
So he
on
was
the bicycle. That's how he was caught.
so even little children.
That was the only one they knew of. That
He
was
knew.
a
But if
child.
he did one, he did more.
I think that he was, he was a killer. I mean, and he was a necrophiliac. And I asked him why did he just go get a job at a mortuary.
Yeah, right.
And he said, I applied. And just know that that's what's going on in mortuaries. Those are the types of people that.
So somebody like him may already have a job at a mortuary.
Yeah, he tried. He was interviewing, interviews, and was trying to get a job. And things could have been very different. Maybe if he had a job at a mortuary, he wouldn't have killed. But I don't know.
I'm thinking they're already dead. I think he also needs the thrill of the kill. I don't know.
Well, I mean, he would go back to the corpses that he killed. He would put makeup on them and have sex with the bodies, and he would keep doing it until the body was completely decomposed. I mean, that shows what his compulsion was, in my opinion.
Smell is none of that bothers
And
me.
I asked him, why do you think boring? I don't know. I don't know why I am, but I am. Then he said to me, if you like the color purple, can you explain why you like the color purple? No, you can't really. And he said it's meant to, and he was such a pity because he was brilliant. But I've been asked many times about him. I think, he was absolutely a psychopath or a sociopath, whatever word you want to say. Now, I think there's something that makes the switch go off with anyone. And in his case, he was raised by his mother, right? And she had him out of wedlock. And in those days, in the 40s, that was the big deal.
Yeah.
So she went back to Washington, and her parents raised Ed like he was his son, and they never told him to his sister. His mother was pretending to be his sister.
Mother was pretending to be the
But it was his mother, and he was being raised by the
grandparents.
And then he said, I always knew she was my mother, though. And he said, why? He said, because when I fell down and I hurt myself, she was the one that came to me. She was the one that made sure I was eating dinner and eating breakfast and going to school. And I just felt that she was my mother and not the other two. And because of the age difference, when I finally figured it out, and he said he felt very let down by the people that loved him and cared for him.
Maybe that's part
So
of
I think that part of the psychosis was part of his case.
Now, you talk to families.
Well, I told you Louise Bundy was his mother. She was from Tacoma, Washington.
About
Carol Boone, the one that he married, I talked to her. And, he had a child while he was in prison. No one knows where she is, though. Now, she would be like 38 now. I don't know, because that Carol Boone, someone that he worked with before he was in prison, and he worked with her, and they married in court. I don't know if you saw that. He was defending himself, and he married her in court.
Yeah, I didn't see the case.
Yeah, and she was there, and they would look the other way, and because they didn't have conjugal visits or anything. But he impregnated her while he was in prison without conjugal visits.
That's not neat, trick.
Yeah, well, they had a system there where they would save money and give it to the guard for like 10 minutes and return the bag. And it was kind of a big room, a rec room, kind of, you've seen those rooms. I know. So that's
I didn't think.
Believe it or not, he was in general population when he was in prison.
Really?
Yeah, he was on death row, but he didn't have behavior problems inside. I mean, after he escaped from Colorado, he didn't fight with the guards. He didn't fight with other inmates. He didn't do any of those things.
No one said that's a trophy in prison.
I know, but he got along really good. He helped him with the legal, because he was the third-year law student when he was arrested, so he knew the legal system very well.
He had quite a life going on the
Yeah,
outside.
he did, and he helped a lot of them with their appeals.
So he helped people one day, and he was killing somebody the next day.
After, when he was in prison, he was helped, and that's what he kept him safe for, because he helped them with their appeal. Yeah, it's cool to have him in prison. Yeah,
I will keep.
Louise Bundy, though, his mother, she didn't know that he was doing all that.
She had a clue.
No, until the very end of his life, like right at the very end, he admitted it to her. But the whole time he was saying that he didn't do it, he was the wrong person. and she believed
She
him.
back.
Yeah, she did.
So and I know there's others like him where you pull everyone around. Maybe they pull themselves. I don't know. Do you think there's split
I think with
personalities
him, he
going
was
on?
very, very smart. He moved in very elite social circles. He had a steady girlfriend who had no idea he was doing that. Years he had this girlfriend. He became very good friends with Anne Rule, the writer. I mean, he met her on the outside. They both did volunteer work together. That's how he met her, which is a real ironic thing. In his case, she didn't know. But there's other cases where they know and they still support the son or the daughter.
Well, I want to move on to Scott Peterson. I followed that the whole way through.
Okay.
And I lived in Sonora, right near Modesto, where
Right.
he lived with not Amber.
With
Amber,
Lacey.
Amber was the girl. Lacey
Amber
Peterson.
wasn't president.
Yeah, those posters were all over the town.
I
lived in
know.
Sonora. Have you
It's a
seen
huge
Lacey?
case.
I mean, I met her mother came in.
Sharon Roach.
Yeah, I was very report, which is 10 miles from where they lived, and they came into our restaurant.
So
I
sad.
had no clue the kid was gonna explode like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I for a long time thought maybe he didn't do it.
Right.
And I even heard something a couple of years ago. They were going to review the case that the bodies they found in the ocean did not match his wife, and maybe there's something to that.
No, he was given the death penalty was taken off the table, so now he's life without parole. He wasn't San Quentin, now he's at Mule Creek, where the Menendez brothers both have Mule
Oh,
Creek.
those guys too.
Yeah, so he's there.
Did you interview those guys?
Yes, I have.
Wow.
Yeah, well, I was working while their trial was going. I was in the same building, in the criminal courts building
I
in
thought you
LA.
did a list of all the people you've It's been 50, I think.
Oh, it's more.
More than
Notorious. Probably 150. I would say
150.
real notorious.
Wow. Can you name?
I can name a lot, though. Mostly men, but some women.
Some women. Oh, there's a few women that were.
I think Pamela Smart.
I just saw the movie.
Pamela Smart.
About Pam.
Yeah.
Oh,
Pamela Smart, the one that had a boyfriend and was a teacher and got her teenage boyfriend to kill her husband, Greg Smart. That was
Yeah.
I interviewed her. I interviewed Leslie Van Houten and Patricia Gremlin,
That's
the Manson girls.
Okay.
They're part of the Manson
And
family.
the one they called the monster, that lady.
Oh, Eileen Warmost.
That's
Yeah, I
great.
interviewed her. She was in Florida as well. And Ben Broderick. I interviewed her. She was the one that killed her ex-husband and his new wife. He was an attorney, Dan Broderick. And Linda Broderick was the wife. So, that was in the San Diego area. Where that was. Yeah. And she was a teacher, a very educated woman. And she's been up for parole 10, 15 times already, Betty. Because it was second-degree murder she was convicted of, not first degree. So you have a chance. No, I don't think so. And
Charles Manson used to come up with
yeah, but there's certain people that are not. Well, part of Betty's whole thing is she won't accept responsibility. She doesn't say she's sorry, and she said it was an accident. If you're doing that, you're not getting parole.
You have to move on past that.
Yeah, and she refuses to. And I've told her several times. And then she has 4 kids. 2 of the kids want her out, and the other 2 think she's dangerous and should be in. Go to all of her parole hearings. It's very sad with her case because I think she was really mentally ill by the point that she killed them. And had she gotten mental health help prior, maybe it wouldn't have. She had no record. I mean, no criminal record.
People like Ted Bundy, are they past mentally ill? Is that a whole new category that
There's
really no.
There's a sociopath.
There's really no.
No, they have no conscience.
Yeah, no.
And many people are sociopaths. That's the thing. I mean, you know them. You work with them.
I can feel it driving. I can feel the vibes.
No, I mean, look, let's say somebody that's willing to get in the promotion and they lie about somebody and they'll do anything. That's also sociopathic behavior. And then when they snap, Scott is a sociopath. Scott Peterson.
Like my father was a wife beater child, but he would snap and go to this rage. Is that kind of the same thing?
No, I mean, they have no soul, is what it is.
Okay.
They know what's wrong with it, but they don't care. They do what suits them. That's what a sociopath is. And they mimic people a lot. Now, I thought Scott was innocent at first, to be honest. Here was somebody that never had a criminal. He didn't have a criminal record, not even a speeding ticket. And was, I mean, was so polite and so well mannered. And he was telling me he slipped one day. That's how I knew he was guilty. But up until he slipped, I didn't think he was guilty. But then after, when I thought about all the interaction that I had with him, he never said to me, I wondered who killed Lacey. He never said that. He said, I wonder what happened. And if you were innocent, you would say that, right? You would wonder. He was just bitching about Amber. And he would say, I would say, we would always discuss the case when we'd see him at San Quentin. And he'd say, I'm reading about these wiretap laws, because I think that was totally illegal. But it's not, from just one person. No. And so, but that's not something you would talk about if you were really innocent, right? And I didn't know it while I was sitting in it until he slipped one day. And that's how I knew he was guilty. What would you like to hear how he's guilty?
Yeah, I was going to say.
All the evidence. Okay, so every time we go visit, I would discuss another piece of evidence because I was trying to maybe work on his appeal or something, or help him with the research. And so we were talking about his alibi was that he went to the marina, to the Berkeley Marina, and he went fishing there. That was his alibi. And we were discussing.
So I want to start right there. I remember on Christmas, you leave your pregnant wife to go fishing on Christmas
90 miles away.
90 miles away. Really? Because I live right in Modesto. You don't go fishing to the Bay Area.
No, I mean, he never ever went on a fishing trip by himself ever before that. That's another thing.
And you don't go to the bay alone in a little boat like that. It's rocking.
And he said it was too cold to go golfing. So it was not too cold.
Who would go golfing on Christmas Eve and leave his pregnant wife at home? I mean,
right.
And he was the good man that he is. He would be there.
Exactly. He was a very accomplished golfer too. That's another thing. When he went to University High School in San Diego, it was a private Catholic school. He's an atheist, but he went there because they had the best golfing program in the United States. Phil Mickelson was on the golf team with him. They were there at the same time. They were friends. So that's a little tidbit. So he was a very good golfer, a very accomplished golfer. So anyway, so we were discussing the boat launch slip. I said, I don't understand why the police right away talked about your alibi and were showing your truck. You had the boat launch slip. You gave it to them immediately, right? You said that's where you were, and he said yes. And he said, you know something, the thing that really pisses me off is I worked so hard to make sure I wouldn't lose the boat launch slip. I had it in my pocket, safety pin so it couldn't go off, and then I knew. So that I knew he was guilty.
Because he's so worried about his alibi.
Right, and then he looked at me, and for like 5-6 minutes, no one was talking. That's a long time to sit in a room with someone for 6 minutes, no one saying anything. Sure. So that's how I knew that he was guilty. Because would you worried about anything if you didn't do it?
Really. And then there was a thing about the anchor. He made a homemade anchor, and they found
They found one, but there were 5. There was evidence that was 5.
And if he had been fishing before, he would have had.
No, there's too many.
Too many.
You would have to ignore 1,000 pieces of facts to believe him. But he was telling me that it wasn't guilty. Yeah. And I come from a public defender background where I take the side of the defendant. And so I believed it. I mean, but everybody was telling me when I would go talk to them, I said, so Scott, I don't think he's guilty. And then people would think, you're nuts, he's guilty. Everyone around me.
Does he have this kind of smile, grin, almost like charm when you meet him?
Very smart, very charming.
Yeah.
Never says profanity. He always told me I use terrible profanity. That's the kind of person that he was. Very polite, very well educated. He does. But a lot of the things that were reported, like they were this couple and they were happy and everything was, that doesn't exist either. I knew that was lies. There was a lot of price. They were very different kind of people in place. That I think was more. He just didn't want to be married anymore. He didn't want to be married. He didn't want to have a child with her. He just didn't want
a baby to kill the baby.
He's a sociopath.
Why not wait till the baby's born?
He's a sociopath. He didn't want to have a child.
Oh, so he knew he wasn't going to leave it.
He didn't want to be involved with her. He didn't want to be involved with her. He didn't like her family. I mean, they weren't saying that, but he didn't like them. He didn't like any of them. He didn't like any of these people. He didn't want to be married. He didn't want to have a child with her. And he didn't want to show everybody that he's a failure. He considered divorce a failure. But the thing was, I can't understand how he didn't think that he would get what. That's another thing. And I said, didn't you know that they were going to be looking at you first? And we're not, without him even to, and he goes, well, if they were looking at me first, everyone was going to say we're the perfect couple. And that's what everybody said.
Well, they did say that. At
They
first.
did say it.
Until
Yeah,
Amber came along.
yeah,
I'd say
I mean, that makes no sense, either, that whole business. People think that he left her like he did it so that he could be with him, but he was cheating on her the whole time that he was married. That's another thing.
I think some other women came forth too and said they had.
There were plenty of them. There was one because he graduated a year behind Lacey, even though he was 3 years old. At San Luis Obispo was where they both graduated from. So he was staying there as a senior, and she was off somewhere else working in another area. So he was cheating on her that whole time. They were married. When they got married, he was still in college. She had already graduated. He was in college still, even though he was 3 years older than her.
So you said notorious. How many books have you written?
Well, I've written two major ones, but then I've done a lot of things. Like I've done.
And you can find her books on
Yeah.
Amazon, guys.
Yeah,
Thomas.
Yes, and I'm working on a new one about a kid now.
I wanted to get to that. Let's get to that.
Okay, so
I don't know much about it, but I'm sure the Albuquerque.
Okay, this is the case of 10-year-old Victoria Martins that was killed in August of 2016 in Albuquerque, and she was killed on her 10th birthday. And not only killed, but it's such a horrible case. Her body was chopped up, cut up, put in a carpet. It's a terrible case. It's any case where the victim is a child is the worst, in my opinion.
Yeah.
A defenseless child that can't defend themselves, that had just, it was her 10th birthday. So everything would be ponies and lovely. And not only was she killed, but in such a brutal, sadistic manner. It's just a horrible case. These kind of cases, no one wants to publish a story like this, but I'm doing it more from the legal aspects of the case, the way it was handled, the way the investigation, because I think it should be in every police academy, this book, to teach you what not to do, what not to do during a murder investigation.
I like that. I like that. What not to do. And this book is it's not ready yet.
No, I'm still researching.
Okay. So
it's a lot. When you're writing true crime, it's very different than any, because you have to have the names correct. Everything has to be perfect.
But you're actually going out and interviewing people. So you're not writing it third hand.
No, I don't write that way. I don't write that way. I won't write a book unless I have access to everybody.
I would buy your books in just because you do it that way.
Yeah, I think it would be boring for the reader. Sure. It's boring for myself. There's things I want to know. Unless I can talk to them, I'm not going to know those things. So that's Scott Pewson. I mean, I was the only one that wrote a book about him that actually interviewed him at San Quentin for years. Yeah, and dealt with him for years. I dealt with him. So, I mean, I knew him very well by the time the book came out. So,
Sure.
like a lot of people don't know he was an atheist. I never saw
Oh, I
that
see, I
written
didn't know- I
anywhere.
didn't know that,
Yeah, he
yeah.
was he refused to get married in a church till late.
See, I didn't know
So they
this.
married in a hotel by a judge, married them. No religious ceremony. You never heard that. I never
No,
heard it
no.
anywhere. That's how he was married. You wouldn't think that he was an atheist.
No, I wouldn't think that.
Well, the prison is now full of atheists, let's be honest. The prison system are full of people that were raised with some kind of religion. Think about it.
Right.
Another one that I interviewed, which was so that book, I don't know when it will be out. Probably next year sometime, or the end of this year. I'm still working.
When it does come out, you're always
Yeah.
welcome to promote it here and
Thank
come
you.
talk to our audience.
I've written a lot of, back in the day for newspapers like crime series and magazines and that kind of thing. So I've done a lot of true crime, not only in books but articles and magazines and that kind of thing. So Richard Allen Davis was another one. He's at San Quentin. He's from he's the one that kidnapped Polly Klaas from Petaluma there.
From Petaluma, and I remember supposedly he took her out went through
That
the
was a
window.
slumber party. They were having a slumber party. He took her out of the house.
It just didn't make sense to me.
But that's true. It's
Yeah.
what he did. Yeah.
And the father, I always had my suspicion that
Mark Klaas.
he knew something, or he sold her, or there was
But he didn't. He took a lie detector, and he has a nonprofit now called Class Kids.
And when I heard that, I thought, oh, he's cashing in.
But John Walsh did that with America's Most Wanted. I mean, if you're going to help people, you take a tragedy
It
and
was
turn.
just something about the father at the time.
I thought it too at the
I
beginning.
can't remember what it was, but I remember there's something about the father.
Yeah,
I
he
just don't
seems
trust.
kind of sleazy, but he wasn't involved in that. And I interviewed Richard Allen Davis. Richard Allen Davis is the most hated inmate at San Quentin. You know why?
Really?
Because the 3 strikes you're outlaw, which first started in it's as a result of his crimes
That's why they passed it.
Yes,
Because people could go steal a slice of pizza and get a life sentence.
no, because he was a convicted felon his whole life. He shouldn't have been out.
If you have, should have been out. I agree with that. Having him in prison, there's people that I hope never get out.
Right
now, I'm trying to help. There's ones I do want to help that turn your life around, and I'm there and I'm helping you through this. But
there's some people you can't rehabilitate. Like
Richard
Richard Ramirez, he would have never been able to rehabilitate him. Never. He was just pure evil. Him. And he was the type that when he caught someone and he chopped them up, he stood there and watched them bleed to death because he enjoyed that kind of thing. He didn't run. He'd stay until they were dead. That's the kind of person that he was.
He got pleasure out of that? Or?
He was very abused. That's another thing with these people. Very few of them come from a Leave It to Beaver household. There's a few, and they could turn on a dime, but mostly no. If these Eileen Warmos, the only woman serial killer, if you look at her background and the way she was raised and what she was exposed to, she was thrown out of her house at 10. She had to start prostituting herself. Her grandfather raped her.
Movie called
Monster. Yeah, I mean, she never had a chance, in my opinion. Right. When you have that kind of background, I used to say to these people, you need to do time with your kid in the cell because you did this. Your child is a problem. Some of them, I
definitely relate to that. Because you want to blame the parents, you want to blame somebody, but it's not always the parents. But I guess in some cases it is.
I had Antoine Miller, who was known as the LA 4. He was one of 4 that pulled Reginald Denny out of the truck during the LA riots.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, now he was 19. He was flashing gang signs in the helicopter while he was doing it. So I come in the cell to talk to him, right before the arraignment. And I said, so Antoine, I saw the video of your handiwork. What's our defense going to be? He said, well, I got caught up in the moment. I said, so we go to the judge and we say you got caught up in the moment? That's what you want me to tell? No, but a lot of entitlement issues. But with Antoine's case, it was very interesting. His mother was a crack addict and a prostitute. His mother was.
Okay, so that's not a healthy home.
No, so he was raised by her parents. And you would think, okay, he's got a mother, the grandparents. They were just as bad. They were violent, both of them, and crazy and neglectful and abusive. And the mother, the wife, the grandmother, finally got fed up and threw the husband out and said, you know what, I'm going to go to counseling, she said to Antoine, and we're going to have a better life and we're going to move. And they went to lunch in South Central. They went to lunch at South Central, and the husband was waiting for her outside. and he shot her point blank range in the head, and that was at 12. I mean, when somebody
That's
is
12.
exposed, and then he was in foster care until he was 18, they throw you out of foster
Yeah, and
care.
you're not
That's
in
a broken system.
foster homes are not in good neighborhoods.
No, he
and
said
all
I
that.
was abused all the time. So what kind of background did he have to do anything other than what he did? I mean, it's not an excuse, and you can't use
No,
it as an
it's not an excuse,
but it gives you
but look what it's producing. I mean, all
exactly.
these neighborhoods.
Exactly. When I told Antoine, I said, now you're going to do time. You're on video. You've had problems before. I feel very sorry for your background, but you have to decide that you're going to live differently. You don't want to live like this because that's the end result. You're going to be dead or you're going to wind up in prison for the rest of your life. So, and I said, and when I went and saw him initially, we didn't know if Denny would be at it, if he would survive. It was very touch and go. He was in intensive care. I said, if he dies, you're going to San Quentin with a one-way ticket. So while we were going through that, he got out. Antoine got 6 years. He was at Pelican Bay, 6 years. The judge took mercy. I said, 6 years, you can work on your GED in there. You can take college classes.
Oh, San Quentin has its own radio.
No, he was at Pelican. I know he was at Pelican Bay,
Okay.
but he said, "Yeah, I'll change. I'm going to work on it." And he didn't sound like it. And so he gets out. He gets out in 5 years, I think, because of the time served and all that. So he gets out, and what does he do? He was 30-ish when he got out. He goes to Hollywood and was fighting with a drug dealer over a drug deal, and he was shot to death outside of this bar in Hollywood at 31. That was his ending, to go through all that. And he refused to, and I heard from people, because I would send him a card. I would always keep track of everyone's birthday, and I sent him a card. How you doing? If you need anything, let me know. So they knew they had somebody that was, there for them. And, he would write me back to him, okay, I'm taking a class. I thought maybe.
Those letters really make a difference. So those
I know.
Because I've been in there, and I get to come out now and call all those people and be part of them.
It's very important. I know how important
they're like gold.
Christmas and the
actually
birthdays.
Somebody knows I exist and they care about me and they want to help me when I get out. Don't stop.
I
doing
do
that.
it. I still do it.
Even if 20 don't.
I go to the thrift stores and
Make
I
it-
buy all the cards and have big sacks of them because we never have enough, right?
Right, never have enough.
No, and I write to all of them. I keep in touch with even people
Right,
that
yeah.
I've written about already.
Sure.
So I do that. But anyway, I was and then when I was talking to people that knew him, and the LA force, there were 4 of them that did that pulled that. The other 3 turned their life around. They were also habitual. So he was the only one that refused to change.
It's a hard thing to do.
I
Change
know.
like that. You got to do it gradually, but even gradually is hard to do for them.
I mean, they're institutionalized at that point too. Yeah. And he said nobody would hire him. People were telling, he's running. I would say, have you seen Antoine? Because I knew he was out. And tell him, he's on the streets.
I don't
he's
buy
running
that
on the
excuse.
streets.
Nobody hire you when there's signs everywhere help on it, especially after the pandemic. But I've never had a problem finding a job. The job you want, you might be roofer or shining shoes or working at McDonald's.
They don't want to.
Don't tell me. Yeah, they don't want.
They don't want to do it. They don't want to. They don't want to live straight.
But you can start
and it was very sad that at 31, because he was a smart kid, he could have done anything. I believe if he put his mind to it. He was very, very smart. He told me very coherently his background, what he had been through, and he was very well spoken for someone that was not educated.
That's where the entitlement issues probably. They're so smart. Well, I'm better than McDonald's, and unless you hire me at $80,000 a year with my own company, I'm not going to work for you. Kind of attitude.
As soon as he got out, he started selling drugs, basically.
Sure.
Yeah, and then he wound up dead at 31. Is that not sad? It's terrible.
It's sad, but
it always makes me sad. Or someone that I really trying to save their life, and they go back in and they refuse.
But see, when you know somebody else cares like you, even I've learned that even if somebody cares just that much about you, that can inspire you to care about yourself. But you got to,
sometimes.
But
I wasn't right there when he got out. You weren't. And he turned back into his bad habits. That's what I did.
Our camerawoman Mary Briggs actually with Thresholds. That's a group that actually will meet them at the gate. Right, Mary? And they write them and visit them while they're in there. And then when they get out, they have like a sober living house to take.
That's important.
Maybe a job lined up, or at least some interviews.
It's very important.
And they're right there to
have that support system is everything, especially now with how expensive everything is. It's ridiculous that they don't have a support system when they get
You
out,
gotta have one.
it's not gonna be a pretty picture, in my opinion.
I had one when
Not.
I got out, and if I didn't have that, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you. I'd probably be selling drugs or something, but and back in for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were lucky.
I was lucky.
Yeah,
but
because I do think
I built
there's
my
some
support.
luck.
I built my support group before I went to prison, not pre-trial. So 4 years of pre-trial, but I got clean and sober to support built, and they were there before, during, and after.
And that's
very
everything,
important.
right? It's very, very
With
important.
the no bail now, and they're letting people out on no cash bail and that.
It's
That's when you build
crazy.
your support group before you get sentenced, guys. You do it now. Don't wait till you after you're done with prison.
No.
You'll never do it.
You have to have everything in
And
place.
if you can't do it before, you at least do it while you're in there. There's,
Right.
There's groups that there's friends outside kind of groups that go to prisons, and you start building it when you're in there at least.
I have a good friend that I met at San Quentin that does that. She was there ministering to the people
there's a
on
service
death row.
league out in the Bay Area.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they
there's
help-
all
they
kinds of
help
stuff.
people, yeah.
But you have to want the help.
You have to
though.
want it. You have to want it. Yeah, if you don't want it,
And some of these people, so Richard Allen Davis has a shower in his cell at San Quentin. He's the most hated man at San Quentin because they blame him because they said, "Oh, I would have been out in 10 years ago because of his stuff. Now I can't get out." But I think, what do you think about that? 3 strikes and you're out. Third felony, you're in for life.
well, I think maybe they need to change it. If you you have 2 strikes and you commit a misdemeanor, like still a candy
No,
bar,
it's 3 felonies.
it is 3 felonies.
The third felony you're in for. That's in California.
Some felonies are too easy. The word felony, well, you're a felon.
Well, if you know that's the law, you would stop.
you would,
right?
yes. I would think that's plenty of time.
Yeah, they're blaming
I
him
think-
instead
I
of
think-
owning what they did.
I
They're
want to say I
blaming-
agree with it because that's your third time you haven't learned your lesson. Yeah, I kind of agree.
Yeah,
I'd like to, on an individual, maybe look at the case, but I agree with you.
yeah. And Stanley Williams was another one that I met at San Quentin. He was executed. Stanley Tookie Williams, he was the founder of the Crips. Yeah, the founder of the Crips.
Oh, yeah, I was talking with a guy about that.
Yeah, and he started a Scared Straight type program at San Quentin, where the kids from the inner city.
I liked
Oakland,
that program.
I thought it was a wonderful thing that he did.
They've stopped it, I guess.
He started writing books when he was in there with my friend Barbara Burnell, who's a writer in LA, and she wrote with him. She co-wrote. He was nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize while he was in there. Yeah, yeah. But he was the founder of the Crips, and he had a few stays of execution that he was able to stay it off. But it was a big movement, the Save Stanley movement. It was celebrities. Dawn was down there at San Quentin. I went at that time to Sacramento to see Arnold Schwarzenegger. He was the governor of California at that time to try and save his life. And I went with Barbara, who was his friend and co-author. Snoop Dogg went. Jamie Foxx came with us because he played him in a movie in Redemption, and just a group of people, some pastors came, just a group of people, those Scared Straight
Cecil
people.
Williams, I think, was there.
Yeah, a big group. There was like 25 of us that went to discuss. Because that was the last shot. All of his appeals had run out, so that was his last shot to get a stay. And then Arnold was talking to me, and his lawyers were there. I was not his lawyer, but I just interviewed him while I was up there because I had other clients there. And I got caught up in the movement because I'm very against the death penalty. Yes, I'm very against the death penalty. I'm not in favor of it.
I'm not either.
I mean, you're going to kill, and it's wrong, so we're
I
going
don't
to kill
think we
you.
have a right. We don't have a right to play God.
No, we don't. It's wrong. Either it's wrong to kill or it's not, and it's wrong to kill for everyone. And it's very, very expensive to the taxpayer when it's barely carried. I just think we need to find other ways. That's not the way to do things, in my opinion. It's very vengeful. It doesn't bring the person back. Then you have more carnage. I'm just very against the death penalty. Not for religious reasons, just because I think it's wrong. It's a terrible tone that you're setting. And it's very, Idaho, there's a lot of big cases this year that are going down in Idaho. It's a death penalty state. But there's only been 3 people executed in 48 years in Idaho. So the likelihood of being executed, no matter what you did, is slim to none, right? The last one was 13 years ago.
So
why do you have it?
Why have it if you don't use it?
And then they're tied up in appeals for 25 years.
That costs more.
Yeah, it's just a waste. We could use that money to rehabilitate people instead of,
rehabilitation is it's
housing. They must have housing when they come out. All these things, but we're not going to have it when we're spending millions. Look at the Parkland shooter. in Florida. They spent what $40 million on the penalty fix just last year, just recently, and they got found not guilty. I mean, they voted for the death for life without parole. There was just a penalty phase because he pled guilty to the 17 that he killed, and the 17 that he in Parkland High School was Spelman Douglas, whatever,
I'm not too
in
familiar with
Parkland,
that
Florida.
one.
Nicholas Cruz.
17 he killed.
Yeah, he killed
that they know-
17
that they know
people.
about, right?
And he killed, no, it was a school shooting. He
Oh,
killed
okay.
17 in the school and injured another 7.
Now
And he
I
pled
remember.
guilty to that, though. So it was just the sentence that they were arguing. And because it has to be unanimous in Florida, has to be all 12 that agree to it. And one holdout, 2 holdouts, then you have a life without parole. And they spent $30 million of taxpayer money to that. That's ridiculous to me. You should have just given him life without parole. And the parents were up there screaming out, you got to get done with the hate, because it eats you up alive I would tell people that also.
Yeah, the hate, that's still that's a big problem we have now too.
Yeah.
The hate thing. Yeah. Oh, that's can we talk about Charles Manson for a minute?
Sure.
I've always been fascinated with him. I don't
Okay.
know why.
Well, Charles Manson. Okay, so Charlie was at Corcoran prison in California. He was at San Quentin after
I thought he was at San Quentin.
and then they commuted the death penalty for a short amount of time in the 70s in California. So all of them, the Manson family, was reverted to life without parole. So he was taken off of death row and sent to Corcoran. That's where he was for the most of the time, Corcoran. With Sirhan, the one that killed Robert Kennedy, he's dead too. I've interviewed him also, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You had to? Really?
Yes.
Wow.
So when I would see now he wasn't. I was not his attorney, not Charlie.
Who was it? The Jack Ruby, and that's the other brother, right?
That's Charles Oswald.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was all suspicious. That's a whole other
that's a whole
conversation.
other-
Yeah, but so Charlie was in Corcoran, minimal security prison for
That's
him.
right. You told me that
He had his own vegetable garden. They let him grow his own garden, and he played guitar and he sang. And
So I was on YouTube one day. I found all his recordings of him and that. And
he was very well liked
I
in
saw the
prison.
Beach Boys movie where they had somebody play the role of Charles Manson, and Dennis Wilson was his friend, and he almost joined the Beach Boys at one time.
Yeah, he was pretty talented.
Yeah.
I asked him, and this was, he died in 2017. Charlie, he was
Right.
83 when he died. But I asked him many years before that, I said, if you could get out, and they said, Sam, the doors are open, would you go? I said, I don't think so. I have everything I need in here except for children and animals. But anything else, when I smoke pot in here, I play the guitar, I tend to my garden, I don't have bills, I have everything taken care of. So he said, he said somebody would try to kill me as soon as I walked outside. He said, I feel very safe here. He had a lot of famous. He was really institutionalized, and let's be honest. The thing about him that we're to have surprised a lot of people is when the cameras were not on him, he was very sane, very rational, very coherent.
He didn't have that. I've never killed anybody.
No, well,
kind of thing.
we didn't discuss his crimes. I just discussed what it's like being Charles Manson at Corcoran. That's what I wanted to know.
Yeah,
Everybody really liked him, though. It seemed like the guards liked him. Yeah, he was very respected in the prison, I think. He had fan letters from people all over the world.
I heard he gets marriage proposals for everything.
Got all kinds of things. He's very, very likable when he's not on camera. That's what I noticed immediately. I said, "Where's the crazy man that jumped on the table?"
Yeah.
He said, "There's no camera. I only do that with the camera."
He's kind of a showman then in front of the camera.
Yeah, he wanted to make it work. A lot of things that he said about the disparity in rich and poor, and we see a lot of that in California more so than a lot of things that he would say were true. The things that he said, the way that he wanted to go about things was crazy. I mean, his theory on life, but what are you gonna do?
So I read he was raised by his mother, who was a prostitute, I think, and then put in foster homes.
He was in and out of the foster care,
and then he found his mother later or something.
There's no clear, really story. I think he was raised for a while by an aunt and uncle, but he was in the juvenile system for quite a while. He was in and out of prison by the time he was at that ranch. I mean, he was in and out of prison most of his adult life before that. It's not like he was completely clean.
No,
He was a habitual offender. Yeah. And I thought he was a very interesting person to talk to. And also, he studied brainwashing. That was a big thing with him.
Oh, he did.
He studied, he read books on brainwashing because his followers,
He could write a book.
they
right
were
now.
Stanford grads, Berkeley grads. They were smart kids.
They
So,
weren't just homeless people who
No.
gathered up, right?
so you talk to Leslie Burnell, she's very, very intelligent, her. And I've been talking to her for 20 years already. She's one of, Graham Winkle, they're both very smart people, both of them. And you have to be very smart to brainwash someone like that. Think about it. So he's very intelligent, Tim, and a master manipulator. Oh, yeah. So
Well, he have to be for-
and he said that the only thing he would say is that, they went, this is a lie, though, because I know, because I've interviewed Patricia and Leslie. So he said, I didn't tell them to go. I said, how would they have known what house to go to? You were out by the ranch. It's far where that ranch was,
right.
like deep in the valley. It wasn't near
Yeah.
Benedict Canyon. I
That
said,
was the Tate murder.
yeah, Sharon Tate
Sharon
and
Tate.
all the rest. Abigail Folger Air.
And now
But-
the was the movie director that was doing that.
Roman
Didn't
Polanski.
he step on child molestation?
That was many years ago, though. He was going to get jailed for that.
I think he again.
And then
though,
he
it's
left it.
resurfaced, I think now he
The one that was the victim, she believes that he shouldn't be punished. She has been advocating for him. He's been in France all these years, so he doesn't get arrested. He's had such a hard life. He was a Holocaust survivor. His family were all killed during the war, and then he has the wife that's murdered, pregnant one. He's had a lot of success, but a lot of tragedy also. Very, very bittersweet with him. I don't really know that, but he was in the hot tub at Jack Nicholson's house. He raped the girl. That's charged. But the one that he raped, and I don't know, she said it wasn't rape. She has come out and spoken. I said stuff, but who knows? But he was never in jail for any of that. He was going to go to jail because he pled whatever they want. There was no trial, and then he escaped. He pled because he knew that he was going to leave. Basically, he was a French citizen who just went back to France. But he had a very tormented life. But Charlie said that he didn't tell them to do any of that. He would send them out to shoplift and steal and stuff so that they could pay the bills, but he never told anybody to kill anyone. That's what he said. And unless we were all sitting there and we heard, how did we really know? I mean, they say he told them.
Well, maybe he told him directly something,
I think he told them exactly what to do because he was a cult leader. He was the leader of them. They didn't do anything unless he told them to do it. And I interviewed Tex Watson too, which Tex to one of his followers.
Oh,
And Tex, he was from Texas.
Oh, he's one of the
Tex
men.
was one of the men, and he also said that he told them. Well, I mean, I don't think there's just all of them are saying he told them. Ones that got out of the cult right before and testified against the others. The ones that are, I mean, it's every single person is saying he told them.
Yeah,
They're
okay.
all lying, and he's telling the truth.
Right.
I don't,
I got you.
there's just too many people that have said it. I said, and that would have been okay with you. They went. So when they came back to the ranch, that's the only time we talked about it. When they came back to the ranch the first time, it was on the news everywhere. You knew that it was them that did it, right?
Right. Yeah.
And he said, yeah, I knew because we were talking about Helter Skelter before, and I know they found Helter Skelter. I said, and the next night they said that you drove them to Los Feliz, the lobby. He said that I never only told them to go and shoplift and go through garbage, or if they go to a house and the door's unlocked, go in and rob and see. But I never told any of them to kill anyone. He said, why would I want that on me, that they're going to kill somebody?
Right.
He said, it's not fair that they accused me of doing the killing when I wasn't there, and he wasn't. He wasn't physically
He wasn't there, but like you said, he's a manipulator. And
he told them to do it. And under the law in California and in most states, if you're orchestrating and you're involved in the plot, whether you did it or everybody is culpable in the same way. So that's what happened there. I said, they told you, there was very good evidence that you told them what to do. And I mean, even to his dying day, he refused to admit that. He sat there and he said, no, they did it on their own.
There was somebody who was his son, who claimed to be his son after he died. I remember he was trying to get the body.
They're going through that now. He had $1 million estate, and a judge in California is deciding who will get it.
Now, did you ever interview that guy?
No, I didn't interview any of his family. Just Jerome.
families that you've interviewed?
Sure.
So
sure.
if I was a parent and my son or my daughter are in prison, they're famous. That'd be really hard to decide.
But I interviewed Carrie Stainer. You talked about the Yosemite murder.
Yeah,
So he's at San Quentin, and I would see his family. Carrie is one of his sisters' name.
Yeah.
Carrie Stainer.
The
I
sister
would
I met in person because she wanted to put up posters at the restaurant I worked at. So
Stainers.
Yeah.
When
they were
the
looking,
brother was missing, Stephen.
When they were looking for they were looking for the daughters.
They were looking for his brother.
the-
Remember, Stephen Stainer.
Well, before that, the 3 women that Carrie murdered.
Oh, I know between Carolyn Sund and
Yeah,
all, yeah.
I met them. I met them in person. They handed me the flyers.
Right. So he killed
but
them and the 2
and
girls,
Stephen
and then
Stainer,
another.
I
He
felt
killed 4 that we know
it
of.
was
4 women. So and then it was very sad with them because the brother was kidnapped before by a
Yeah, I saw
pedophile.
them. I know my name is Steven. It's a
Right,
movie. It's a
yeah.
really good movie, guys. You
Yeah.
should watch it. Yeah, and there was all that, and then the brother was the only normal one according to the movie.
Very talented artist.
And I
too.
would have never thought he would end up being killing.
Yeah, I
these
think
women.
it affected him.
I-
But
he must have
I
had something to do
interviewed
with
his
that.
parents died long ago. His sisters are still alive.
Yeah,
and
he had
live
5
up there.
sisters,
Yeah,
4 or
he had
5
5 sisters. And then Stephen's late wife
Right.
lives there, and they're all kind of close. I interviewed all of them, all of the sisters, and the parents were deceased already by that point because he's been up there.
I think Steven was killed by his child molester.
No, Stephen was
they
killed in a motorcycle accident.
accident, but I'm thinking he got hit by that guy.
Parnell.
I think Parnell had something to do with them. Hit him on the motorcycle.
You think so?
I read something about that he was following.
Really? Because he got out. He didn't stay in there.
No, he got out, and I think he just tapped him with a motorcycle, knocked him over, and kept going. That's a theory. I don't know what's true. But
I don't know if it played a role with happened Stephen and Carrie's crimes.
yeah, I think
it did.
must
I
have.
think that he was getting a lot of attention when he got out.
Yeah, and he got all that money. He was on
Yeah.
the news,
And I
newspaper,
think
he
that
bought a
was
car and all that. Yeah,
But the sister said he was a loner way before that Carrie was alone. That's what the sister said about Carrie. That he was always alone, or he was like awkward with people. He never had a girlfriend. He stuck to himself. So that thing you wouldn't think it has to do with Stephen.
see, but
And that Stephen's a victim. He was the victim of this child predator. So why would, if it affected him that way, that he was going to go and kill people?
all those years he thought his brother was missing, and his brother shows up, and now he gets all the attention. Carrie's no longer the only,
He didn't do any of his stuff until after Stephen was dead. You know that, right?
So after, I know that.
He was so talented. He was a very good artist.
Maybe
He could have went and got a job as a cartoonist. Really, really talented. They was shocked the people that went to high school with him, he wound up like that without. And he refused to he isolated himself. He worked in the cabin up in Yosemite by himself. I mean,
I worked right near the road that the cabin was on. I turned right it, but we used to drive by it almost every day.
that's crazy, right? They
Highway,
did, and they'd be there every weekend. To
108, Highway 108.
The sisters visited him like once a month
In prison?
at San Quentin because he's still at San Quentin.
Is still visiting?
Yeah, they still visit him. They write to him and they visit. There's nothing that you can do. He pled guilty. There was no trial or anything, so he's never getting out. Yeah, but they support him. It's her brother.
I wanted to talk about that. So let's just I don't know how many have you interviewed all sisters?
All five.
So how does a family even make a decision after the person's been guilty? I mean, how do you go?
Yeah, I asked him that.
I mean,
what do you think of? I mean, he pled guilty, so there's no question here that he did it.
So,
And they said, you know what? We don't like what he did. We don't condone what he did. But that's no one. The parents are gone, and the mother visited him all the time. She died. His mother did. He said, I have to support him. We're his family, and if he did something wrong, then as a family, we have to shoulder some of that as well.
Well, it's one thing your son got caught dealing drugs, or your daughter got caught, prostitution. You still go visit her. Your son got caught robbing a bank. Where do you draw the line? Is it murder all of a sudden? Now I won't.
Some of them don't have.
Some of them draw the line at bank robbery.
Some of them, at San Quentin, for instance, that's where death row is in California. It's at San Quentin. You have to have a very clean record to go and visit them. And they do a DOJ check, the Department of Justice. you can't even have you stole a donut somewhere in your background to go visit someone. So some of these people have family members that have a record. They can't go visit them anyway, even if they wanted to. But they write them letters and they do that. But that was the weird thing. I dedicated a whole chapter to that issue in one of my books. Because here are these people, the ones that are actually physically going and visiting, they have no criminal record. They live nice lives, 9 to 5 people, work jobs, and yet they're visiting someone on death row that's been condemned to die, and they have no prison record. They have to be clean. It was very strange. I talked to one woman who was visiting her son. He killed 10 people during a gang activity. 10 people he killed, and she would come and visit him. She lived in Seattle, and she would fly in once a month. Worked in a bank.
You think she forgave him then?
And well, I had a long she visit him, and I said, "Is there any question that he's guilty?" No, she said he admitted to me that he was guilty, that he did it. So she said, "I have to visit him. I'm his mother. If I don't visit him, who else is going to visit?"
have to.
But that's how she said,
Yeah,
"He's
but
my son. I love him. I raised him." And she said she had to work
Blame herself.
100 jobs. She said she wasn't there enough for him, and he got into trouble.
So
And she moved from Seattle to Oakland so that she wouldn't have the plane ride every month. So she uprooted her whole life to be able to
That's common.
support him.
families who move near a prison.
Yeah, the ones that they
ones
still have
that-
contact with. Yeah, it's a very, very hard life. She said she never told anybody, like people that didn't know her before, like new people that she was too embarrassed to tell anyone because they judged her. You know, as a son on death row, they would judge her. She didn't want to be judged by anyone. So you're sitting in silence, basically, and she said it's the worst spot to be in. Her only child, also. Terrible. I just felt so badly for her.
Like Anne that you met, our founder here. So her husband went to prison.
Mhm.
I bet for smuggling drugs, I believe, on airplanes. But I believe, excuse me, conspiracy. They always that's always their base in a whole conspiracy. If they don't have any charges.
Federal prison is a lot easier.
But I'm wondering, because she stayed with him, but a lot of wives don't go. Last a year, these guys in prison. If you're doing a 10-year sentence, I'm gonna say 90% chance she's not gonna get out. There are those that hang in there, and they're not even murderers. So people leave you just because you.
This case I'm writing that right now, the one in Albuquerque,
just
Fabian
what it
Gonzalez.
takes for somebody
Well,
to,
Fabian Gonzalez was out on bail for a few years before he was the last one to be sentenced, and he got married while he was out on bail here in Albuquerque. And the woman that he married was a nurse and had 2 children. She's still married to me. He was just
married
sentenced. Yeah.
somebody who you know is going to.
Yeah, and he said I didn't do it, but he didn't do it. You see, that's what the problem. He wasn't even there when she was killed. I mean, there's an appeal that's going to go through. I know, but he was not there when the child was killed. They dropped the murder charge,
Right.
but he's still sentenced. He just was sentenced a few months ago, 28 years for something that he was not there. He wasn't in the apartment when she was killed. It's the cousin that killed the child. And she made believe it was some fourth. They keep saying it's the 4th unknown person with unknown DNA. It's all lies, all of that.
I mean, so you're saying he's in it, he wasn't there. What happened in the trial?
Kind of guilt by association.
Why did the jury?
It was his cousin that committed the murder. His female cousin, and the child's mother. He was dating the child's mother. That was his girlfriend. He only had known her a few weeks. It wasn't a long term
jury trial, or
it was a jury trial.
And they also vote on the sentence.
Yeah, no, the judge got the.
Oh, the judge
did the sentence.
Because I'm wondering why 20 years. That sounds like a long time.
Well, that's the whole thing. I mean, it's the craziest case I've ever seen.
That was on the
That's
judge,
why
not
I
on the
want to
jury.
write about it. Not so much about the crime, but the criminal aspect, the criminal law aspect of it, the way it was handled legally is what my issue, because there's so many problems with it. And the mother, I mean, I think the mother's more culpable because it was her child, and you're ultimately responsible. But it wasn't his child. He was charged with child abuse. I mean, it's not his child. And he had nothing to do with it. He never abused her. How do you charge someone with child abuse that was not even there?
But it's done all the time, right?
Normally it's, the case that I dealt with as a public defender, where it was a parent that killed their child, there was years of abuse, prior abuse that we're looking at here. And in this case, he knew the mother for 3 weeks. So he knew the child for 3 weeks. And they have him on video the day of the morning of the murder. She's in the grocery store with him, the child with him. He's taking her shopping. There didn't seem to be any, I mean, I think he got railroaded. That's my personal opinion. He and the mother. The mother's more culpable because it's her child and you're responsible for the child's welfare. And I think she's got like 12, 14 years or something over. And she wasn't in the apartment. And there was no prior abuse. None. She lost her whole life. She had no criminal record prior. She was in her 30s. She had a job. She had her own apartment. She had a car. That's here in Albuquerque. The whole way that was handled was disgraceful, in my opinion, because the one that actually did it got a deal and she'll be out in something. You know, that's what the problem here is. She should never be out something like that. She killed a 10-year-old girl on her birthday, chopped up her body and burned it, and they gave her a deal against Fabian, who was not there, who had nothing to do with that. I mean, that's the reason. I know.
Drives me crazy. Let me ask you a question. You have been a public defender. I went through federal court. Here's what happens to most people in federal court. So, suspicious of you or something, but my house got raided and there was doing false tax returns. But it was raided and they tell me don't leave town. And a year later, nothing happens for a year. But a year later, I get a call saying, you've been indicted. And I said, what does that mean? Well, there was a grand jury and there was a hearing, and they decided that you're guilty of this crime, but don't worry, we're going to give you a chance to prove you're innocent if you want to take it to court when they have a 97.2% conviction rate. So I'm all, well, who's this grand jury? I thought I'd get to a jury of my peers. I thought I'd get to face my accuser. This grand jury, you don't know who they are. You never get to meet them.
That's
never
before.
know.
That's to get the indictment.
But hear me out. Get this indictment. How come I'm not invited? I find out after the fact that I'm invited, but now we'll give you a chance to prove yourself innocent. Gee, thanks a lot for inviting me. Where in the Constitution does it say? To me, that's just all wrong.
Yeah, but it's
I should have.
That's how they got an indictment against OJ for criminal. They had a grand jury.
But I should have the right to pick my own jury and my peers. This grand jury.
That's just so that they can get.
All statement is sufficient. Hearsay will get you indicted.
You know, it doesn't take much. You got to watch your recovery.
If I see a house down the street and I see cars coming and going, I know the guy's dealing drugs, right?
Right.
And he sees me out mowing my lawn or something. The cops raid his house. The cops say, "Oh, we've been watching." He said, "Is that guy who called you?" And they come to me and say, "He pointed at you. Conspiracy. I'm involved."
Right.
That could get me thrown in prison just because I looked out my window. I mean, I just drive you crazy.
Guilt by association.
Yeah.
How much? You're
I'm
at
52 months, and I got out in 27.
in California, right?
No, it's federal.
Where were you at?
Colorado.
Oh, you're in
Colorado, and I worked. So
No, did you see?
I was a
interviewed
camper. In
Ted Kaczynski.
yeah, I worked. I was at the camp. I worked considered out of custody. Some people have jobs in the town. My job was to go over to
Right.
an inmate drives us over there. We go through the gates and security, and we
Something else that
we worked in the kitchen. The most secure prison in the world, and you will not believe how much stuff is smuggled out there.
That's every
day.
The
No,
guards
but
are
this is the
dirty.
most
The
secure
guards are dirty.
but the
though.
most secure prison in the world.
Well, that's how Ted Bundy was able to have a child. It's the same kind of thing. They're very dirty. The guards, a lot of them.
Well, we worked side by side with them, and they like to talk about their lives.
Right.
That's another story. But so we go there in the day, and we work. We come home, we go sleep at the camp at night. But I made trays for Ted Kaczynski. All the guys. Was there the last month when El Chapo came. We got to make his welcome cup. It's a brown coffee mug with a toothbrush and a plastic spoon and a little Snickers bar and welcome to Supermax kind of thing. They have 3 kinds of spoons in there. They have a real soft spoon, an even softer one, and then a paper cardboard spoon. That's for the ones,
Yeah.
So
they can't make your
so
sandwich.
there's 3 levels of spoons, and that's how we tell who's
He's brilliant, Ted Kaczynski.
I'll tell you a story about him. The correctional officers, they don't like to be called guards, but the guards got really upset one day because an inmate had the TV in the little cell was behind a plexiglass.
Mm-hmm.
An inmate figured weasel his hand through the plexiglass, take out the wires from the TV, and stretch him out and make a remote control unit so he could lay on his bunk and turn the channels on the TV.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah, they were really mad. So they pulled him out. And they pulled him out of that cell. And they put him in a different one. And,
He's completely
but
antisocial.
that's brilliant. I don't even know how you would make a remote control out of it.
Well, he was a professor
Yeah,
at
he was
Harvard. I
brilliant.
mean, he was
and that's what he
brilliant.
did. That's the one thing I know that happened while I was.
I only went a few times because he wouldn't cooperate as far as
Lawyers
talking. I
had
had a friend that was a guard
I mean,
there.
you are a lawyer, but okay.
I did have a friend that worked there that I went to college with.
Okay.
Because I graduated from the University of Colorado in Boulder, and she went there to Colonel Justin to stay in touch. I'm going to go talk to Ted. I wrote him a note and said I want to, and he seemed like he wouldn't cooperate, but I went in there and he just wouldn't come up because I really don't think I'll ever get out, no matter how you spin it. Yeah, so it's kind of pointless, he would say, but he was very, very brilliant. Clearly, he's just antisocial, and he has those. Yeah, and he was always in conspiracy theories about the government was against. Yeah. Oh yeah, he's sitting and plotting and planning within his own mind, basically.
Yeah, when they're done with their tray, they put little notes under there. And when I was washing dishes, he drew himself. I never got to keep one because everybody else could grab them first because I was going to sell it on eBay or something. But he sends us notes.
He's very, very talented. He would
send us these letters, and they were like, oh, we would show him around.
I mean, you wonder, he was a professor, and then he just all of a sudden went up to that cabin and lived by himself and just dropped on society, sending those bombs through the mail all of a sudden. I mean, there's no really rhyme or reason why he did what he did.
And he picked a specific people that he saw.
A lot of professors, teachers, he was after. Very strange.
I mean,
yeah.
Yeah, and I guess he would travel hundreds of miles to mail it, postmark.
It was the brother, really. That's how he got. The brother read the manifesto, and he said, "That's Ted that did it. It's his handwriting."
I think at first they ignored it because a lot of people were saying, "I know who the."
And it's not only his handwriting, but the words they used. He had a very, he had an extensive vocabulary. He just knew it was him. And that's another thing that took a lot of courage to turn his own brother in.
Yeah. See, I don't know if I could.
Yeah,
I have a brother, and he's, I could actually see him doing that one day. But I mean, if that was him, my brother, what do you do? I mean, he did the right thing.
Some people don't turn them in. You don't have to. That's not a crime. I know a lot of people think that. No, it's not. No. If you know someone's did a crime, no. Unless you were orchestrating the crime. That has nothing to do with the crime. And you just know that someone's guilty and where they are. That's not a crime. Not to turn someone in. That is not a crime in any state.
Right.
You don't have to turn anyone in.
So let's say Ted Bundy's wife knows he goes out every night and kills women, and she says nothing. That's still not
a crime. Even let's say you're watching someone get killed. You don't have to help them. And you don't have to call 911. That's not a crime. That's not a crime.
So if I witnessed,
and I had a very close friend.
Execution, a drug dealer killing somebody.
You don't have to turn anyone in. It's not a crime. I had a close friend that was a very notorious, Andrew Cunanan, the one that killed Versace.
I don't know.
Okay, he was a very good friend of mine. I was going to law school in San Diego. I had a mutual friend. That's how I met him. So when he was doing his last crimes, because he killed 5 people, I was talking to him. I knew where he was, and when I flew down to where he was in New Jersey, because I went with my friends, and I wanted to arrange a surrender for him, just turn himself in, and he didn't do it. He said, "I'm not doing it." And he said, "I promise I'm not going to kill anybody." But I didn't turn him in and tell anybody where I don't have to do that.
But let's say you're married to somebody you're married to a hitman. He goes out and does jobs.
You don't have to turn him in.
Yourself in, but shouldn't you? The next time he goes out, he's going to go kill someone, and that's got to be on your conscience.
Yeah, I know, but you don't have to do it, though. It's not a crime.
And if you say anything to him,
you should do it. It's the moral thing to do, but
or at least tell him, "Hey, I know you're killing people. Please don't go out tonight and kill someone." Now you got to know he's going to kill you because God, what do you do?
It's a lot of people that have family members that do, and they don't turn them in, especially parents. when it's a child and they're young, and that's not a crime. If you weren't helping them do the crime and you weren't aiding and abetting, let's say they're wanted, okay, they're on the FBI's most wanted, and you give them shelter and you hide them, that's a crime.
That's right.
You're not allowed to do that.
Even if I'm at a church or something like that.
Yeah, you're not allowed to aid and abet someone you know is hiding from the law. That's a crime.
So
that's a crime. But if, let's say, you don't know where they are exactly, because that could be right. You don't know where they're not telling you where they are, but you know they're guilty. You don't have to turn them in. You don't have to call. You don't have to. It's not a crime.
Like if I know someone who has a warrant,
you don't have to turn them in. No, if you're not involved in any of the crime, you didn't help with the crime.
What if they're over my house and they say I have a warrant? They're only going to stay for an hour, but I mean, I know that that's
not a crime. No. It's
just
very interesting the way laws work, isn't it?
Yeah,
you would think it would be a crime, but it's not. You have to be involved in the crime for it to be a crime. Or that's a wanted fugitive and you're helping them. Even if it's a wanted fugitive and you know the person, let's say you know what city they're in, that's not a crime. But if you give them a house to live in and you bring them food, that's a crime.
That's why I said they're there for an hour. Maybe.
No, that's not a crime.
I give somebody a ride that has a warrant to wherever they want to go to. I'm helping them get to wherever.
Yeah, I would get a lawyer.
Yeah,
doing that.
I know. I'm just throwing these scenarios because I know there are people with the same thing, And if you find out they have one,
But that's not a crime. The bottom line, most of these kinds of things, you have to be involved in the crime, complicit. You helped them, you drove the car, you're letting them stay in your house. That's a big one. If you know they're wanted, then you give them house and food and money to hide them. Yeah. Then that's a crime. That's a first degree felony. We'll do 20 years for that.
How about if I had no clue and I'm renting?
No, then you have no clue.
Somebody and they have warrant.
No, then no. I mean, Ted Bundy escaped from prison, right, in Colorado.
How did he do that?
And he went to Florida and he was renting a room. But he took up a different name. Right. Okay, well, they ran him around. The lady didn't know that she was and he would always pick a college town. He felt that he could blend in very well.
I guess he did.
Yeah, well, he was a student for he was a third-year law student when he was finally caught. So he knew the law very well. Still was caught, though. And that was before the internet. And it was harder to get caught back then because it wasn't that digital footprint like there is now. Most people get caught with the phone. It always has been like that. I used to tell people before cell phones, carry your roll recorders with you, use a payphone. Would they listen? Of course not. And that's how they would get caught, with the phone. The phone is what catches 90% of the people.
Now, some never got
it's very impossible now, the way there's cameras like everywhere. As soon as you walk outside, you will get caught if you're doing it.
It used to be pay cash and everything, don't use a credit card, but the facial recognition.
And anything, your cell phone, especially if you have little apps. By habit, I don't have any apps on my phone at all because I think that I don't do it. Well, I just think that because you don't know they can just see every little thing you're doing if your whole life is on your phone. I just think that's stupid. I have a laptop. I don't need to have it on a phone. That's my position. And I think the phone works better when you don't have a bunch of stuff.
Well, the day has come. I was told a long time ago there'll be a day everyone will have a little miniature computer in their
and
their
we
pocket.
do now.
That'll never happen, but it's here.
Yeah, and that's it's almost impossible. The one in Idaho that just got caught, Brian Kohlberger is his name. He was a PhD criminal justice student at Washington State, and he got caught for killing 4 students in Idaho. You haven't heard the case? It's all over the place. He was in Pennsylvania. Now he's extradited back to Idaho.
Now, the Zodiac killer, he never got caught. But they have a few people.
I think that he probably stopped at a certain point.
You think that can be done?
Yeah. But this was years ago when he started the crimes, too.
Right.
It was easier not to get caught. And look, they all got caught. Eileen Warmos, there was no internet. She got caught. Right? They caught her. They didn't have. Towards the end, there was the internet. But most of the time that she was doing stuff, there wasn't any of that, and she was caught, and Ted got caught.
Yeah,
he got escaped twice. He got caught both times. Yeah. It was amazing how he was able to escape from prison, right?
Yeah, I'd like to hear that. Oh, it's almost 4:30.
Okay.
Yeah. We could talk it
I
out.
know.
Yeah. How about some final words for
Well,
people out there? And if
yeah,
they want to
I'm-
read your books or if they want to get a hold of you,
Yeah.
I can put information on the video.
Right.
Tell me.
Well, I'm going to be launching a true crime podcast soon
You got
called Malevolent Reality with Donna Thomas. So that will be soon. And my first case I'm going to be discussing is the local case of Victoria Martin's one from
Okay.
Albuquerque. So that will be like a 5-parter.
Party.
Yeah, they'll have the defendants calling in from jail. They'll be on.
Wow, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. That's
Yeah,
nice.
I don't do it otherwise.
We go to prisons and jails weeks for life.
Oh, you
Maybe
do?
Talk
Okay.
after.
Okay.
Maybe
Thanks
you can
for
help us get in. Because
Probably.
the pandemic, they're not letting us back in all.
Right.
Are you able to go?
I'm able to go in.
She has carte blanche, guys.
I can go in. I can say I'm having legal vision. I'm thinking about working on your appeal. I have to see what it says, something like that. So they let me.
I know
don't
a
have
lot
any
of people watching the show have loved ones in jail. They may want to contact you for some
They
advice.
can
and things.
contact you, and you know how to reach me.
I do.
Can we
I
do it that
yes,
way?
we can. Yes, we
Okay.
can.
Okay. Or anybody that needs attention on a crime case, like an unsolved case, like a family member's missing, a murder. And if they let me look at that also, so to get more attention, that's another way too.
And some advice for people out there who are waiting for loved ones to come home from prison.
I mean, the best thing, like you said, a support system, having a strong support system in place is the best way to prevent recidivism, where they're going to reoffend. If they have support, job, housing, all of those basic things must be in place for them. So it's not quite the large hill that they have to climb when they come back.
Right.
That's important. Just be patient and send them letters and send them cards so they have something to look forward to.
I also think things shouldn't be just handed out to them when they get out either. But you
No,
need to be their support system. But like you start your work at 8:00.
no, they have to
They have to
do the
do some of the
incentive.
work too.
If
But-
they don't want to do it, it's not going to work either.
Exactly.
They have to want to change their lives.
Yeah.
That's very important. Just say, listen, you want to go back, or you want to be clean and have a decent life when you come out.
Most say they don't want to go back.
Right. So you have to do things differently.
Some-
What you did before is not working.
No, not
obviously.
working, and that's really they got to
Right.
hold themselves accountable. Take a look at their life and decide whether you want to change it or you want to keep it going the same way it is. Because then you go right back.
Right. Exactly. Okay. Well, thank you for having me on,
Thank you
Sean.
very much.
I
Thank you very
appreciate
much.
it.
Yeah, I'd
Thank
like
you,
to have
guys.
you on again. All these stories 150 people that you've interviewed. That's a lot of shows we can
I
do.
know. Thank
But at
you.
least when you start on this new book about the Albuquerque, since it's local too.
Yeah, I'll be back
Yeah,
to
we'd
talk
love to have
about
you back
that.
for that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, guys,
Thank
we're going
you.
to wrap it up. We'll see you next week, 3:00. Thanks for hanging
Thank
in.
you.
All right.